Hello everyone, and welcome to Training Tuesday for September 6th, 2022. This week's episode features Vedra, our 5-year-old jungle carpet python, Morelia spilota chenii. I'm Lori with Behavior Education at Spirit Keeper Animal Sanctuary, and if you have been following my work for a while, you will know that Vedra is the very first snake that I did any type of formal training with. And I always say that she taught me how to target train snakes, and she taught me how to shift train snakes, because together we learned this process, and it has worked so phenomenally well with subsequent snakes that I've trained, that many of my clients have trained, and I'm sure that many of you who watch these videos have trained. This week, I'd like Vedra to shift all the way out of her enclosure because it needs to be totally cleaned out. Or I should say, at least her water needs to be totally cleaned out. She loves to swim, and almost every night she swims. And so she has a rather large water container in there, and it stays pretty dirty. She has separate drinking water, but every now and then I've got to take that swimming pool out and get it cleaned, and I need her to be out of the enclosure to do it because she is very good at training, is very confident and comfortable now in the open space, shifting out and around me, but she still doesn't like to be touched or handled or have her space intruded upon. So I just asked her to shift out onto her original shift container. It's actually the original container that was her quarantine tub when she first came to live with us many, many years ago. And it doesn't matter that she doesn't fit lengthways in it anymore because it's just a station now for her to shift out onto, and I don't even need to close her up in it. I can just make sure that most of her body is in or on it, and I don't even put the lid on all the way. And then I can move her to another spot in the room so that I can take care of her enclosure. And as you saw there, I did touch her, and we have worked up to the point where I can touch her when she's eating just to move small parts of her body onto the shift. I sped up all the footage of me cleaning because I feel like cleaning a snake enclosure is pretty boring to watch, but I wanted to remind you of this handy tool that I use to suck out all the water from her swimming pool before I lift it out, and it's a little shop vac that's able to suck up water so that I can empty the pool completely or almost completely, be able to take it out, fully clean it, and then put it back in without spilling any water. Once her water container is clean and put back, I use pitchers to fill it up. And again, this helps me keep from spilling water onto the floor. And it takes several pitchers to fill that up. I bought this container at a garden store, and I don't remember if it's for an outdoor pond or what. Vedra uses the bathroom in her humid hide, so that makes cleaning pretty convenient. And although I check other areas in her enclosure and I check her other tubs and hides, she really only uses the bathroom in that humid hide. So I cleaned that out. She's got fresh water. Now her enclosure is all good to go and refreshed, and we're ready to put her back in. And so to put her back in, I just reversed the shift process. She had actually put herself into her shift container, and I put the lid on to carry it over. And now you'll notice that I'm using a longer target to shift her back in than the one I used to shift her out. And that's because she's got a 4x2x2 enclosure. In order to get her shifted back in, I have to put the sliding doors in the middle and ask her to shift in one end while I have my target stuck through the other end. And that way I can ask her to shift through that left side of the enclosure and then ask her to move across the whole length of her enclosure and almost come out the right side of the enclosure so that her whole body gets inside her habitat and I don't have most of her body hanging out. And in order to do that safely and in a manner that's less likely to make her anxious, instead of sticking part of my hand and arm inside the enclosure, I have a 3 or 3.5 foot target stick that I can reach the other end with. and then I can use it to shift her all the way back into her enclosure and stretch her body out diagonally from one corner to the next, and then start to have her head out the opening towards me and give her reinforcement. So she gets 2 repetitions during this training session. She shifted out and she shifted back in. I accomplished an enclosure cleaning, a swimming pool cleaning, and we got to work together and continue to build that trust and communication between us, as we will continue to do over her lifetime, which will hopefully be a very long life. Now, just the very tip of her tail wasn't quite in, and I didn't want to squish it, so I touched it with my finger. She is getting used to me touching her during these training sessions while she has food, but is still pretty uncomfortable if I try to touch her and she's out during an exercise session and I try to pick her up or touch her. She does not like that at all, but she tolerates it during the training sessions when she's eating and has her reinforcer. And here I'm just showing you the equipment that I used for this session. It all works very well for Vedra and I. It's the same target that she's always used since she was a baby. It's the same shift hub that she's always used since she was a baby. I haven't changed any of her training equipment over the years, other than to make the target stick itself longer for shifting her back in.